Really? Turn it back on.
Decide what we're gonna do, that's not gonna go into someone's window or something.
Bear with me, we're having technological issues.
Okay.
But, you know.
Take your time.
Making a ton of money. Good for her. You know, I trained her to take my job. I just wasn't moving fast enough to get out of stage.
I know they feel that.
What do you think of that speaker the other night?
That was good.
I reserve.
I should have known better than to ask.
I reserve the right.
I think
to,
you got
I
your
think he-
answer.
I think he talked very well on certain items. There were some other items I think he was still 30 years in the past.
Oh my gosh,
Alright.
Like
We're waiting for,
the volunteers.
There's time you
the
couldn't
IT
get it.
They're not
department.
coming back.
There's certain unions that they still get, but
Yeah.
ours are all
No. And again, I thought the bus Mack truck that they ran over a tower with the health system based EMS several times in that comment was pretty interesting. And then he tried to recover by saying, well, but I've only seen 2 of them. Too bad you ran over the bus already. Oh, yeah.
But you know, look at that
I did it,
roundabout on First Street.
There we go.
I made that small.
did it for small municipals on the 13th up at Robinson. Went very well.
I mean, there's tire
In
marks
fact, 2 of them said,
after about the first.
we could just do this as a
I would say
pass,
5 feet.
and then instead of paying 100, they'd pay
The
45.
semis are.
That's a no-brainer, we can do that.
That's,
Why you let them pay less?
I don't know who's driving their design.
Well, that's the regular membership. is-
We'll go right over to
Oh, that they can drive over.
Yeah.
Got it. What if they're driving?
But,
Every once in a while.
you know,
That's the way it is.
That's right. Steve and I both think that's really right.
Nope, not today.
Going towards our house.
My window in the office.
Like high school.
Not as short as I am
But
right
it
now.
wasn't big of a turn.
Yes.
It's easier to the left than.
No,
You-
no,
I've been heavily involved with
I was 17,
in the beginning.
my dad would have killed me.
Okay. Okay, we'll call the meeting of the Fire and Police Committee to order. And roll call, please.
Bill Jakes,
Here.
Fred Vogel,
Here.
Ron Stanko,
Here.
Fred Levering,
Here.
and Steve Brunner.
Here.
Very good. Are there any public comments? Mr. J.
Yes, hi. So I'd like to address today a matter of concern.
Please state your name and address.
Okay, Adrian Jadick, 48 Cardinal Road. Regarding the safety and privacy of my family. Our neighbors have installed for some time now a high-resolution 4K camera that is deliberately aimed at our home, including the bedrooms of our daughters, which raises significant privacy issues. This camera is equipped with high zoom capabilities, infringes upon our privacy in a manner that is deeply troubling. We have evidence, including screenshots and photos posted on social media, that demonstrate the camera's ability to capture intimate details inside on our home. The camera's focus on our property rather than their own suggests that there is a purpose, not for security, but for surveillance, violating our reasonable expectation of privacy. Under Pennsylvania law, this action can be seen as an invasion of privacy, specifically referenced in Title 18, Section 7507.1, which prohibits photographing or recording individuals in places where they have reasonable expectation of privacy without their consent. Furthermore, the situation could potentially be considered a form of trespass as outlined in Title 18, paragraph 3503, given the intrusive nature of the surveillance. The positioning and use of this camera do not align with the intended use of home security systems, as it does not adequately monitor their property, but instead invasively surveys ours. This is a clear misuse of surveillance technology, and it stands in violation of privacy and dignity that every resident deserves. We request your intervention to ensure that surveillance practices within our community respect individual privacy rights and are conducted within the framework of our state laws. It is crucial that we uphold these standards to maintain the trust and safety of our community. I have to say here to add that two things. Number one, this is not just about this camera, it's a general intent that we have seen over time of willing to photograph inside our property, inside our home. I don't mind if they take a picture when we're on, in the front there, expect whatever they want. But when the intent is visibly to go inside, to, these cameras record all the time. So the moment you open a drapery or a curtain, they can see all the way in. So that is the part that we're concerned about. We're not unreasonable, everybody has a ring bell today, but those do not have the necessary resolution to penetrate that far. This is equivalent of having a high zoom camera and sitting there waiting for the curtains to come out. And our laws specifically are against that. The second concern is that I brought this with our chief, and he says, no, how about the paparazzis? No, we have laws, and it's sad that you don't know that. So we're asking for intervention, we're asking for clarification of, you can go beyond that and express this. Everybody has the right to have a ring camera or whatever they're called. But that is to protect on the porch, immediate proximity of the home, not to shoot across the neighbor and look inside his bedroom. So there's a difference. And today's cameras have capabilities that were not in place when these laws were made. So we have to keep that in mind too. So that's about it for today. Thank you so much.
Mr. Jake, just a question for you. Have you notified, when this is going on, have you notified the police?
I had a chat with him.
Have you notified the police department when this is
We
going
have
on?
actually notified the DA.
Okay. That's pretty much where it stands.
Well, I
It
think
sounds like
that
civil
it's
and
up to
criminal.
you, it is up to you to understand the reasonable situation here. We're gonna keep pursuing this, but remember that back when, you also said the same thing about parking in front of a mailbox, which technically legally, but it was obviously with intent. This is also with intent, so we're coming to you to, apply reason. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, is there any other public comment? Hearing none, we'll move on to fire department. Well, this is a pleasant change. Chief.
Good afternoon. So I know there's a lot of stuff on the agenda here, so trying to move through it pretty quickly. Please ask any questions that you have. We're happy to answer them, and if I don't have the answer, I will get it for you. As you can see up on the screen and the television here, that's our monthly activity for March 2024 year to date, or to date today. A total of 67 calls for the month so far, 26 of those were QRS, with 12 patient contacts. The right-hand side there, you can see responses by municipality. The borough calls were 67 totally. We're at quite a bit more for the month, 103, I believe. I didn't add that in there, I apologize. But we've given mutual aid 36 times to those municipalities that are listed there. And to date, there's been 117 inspections completed within the borough. Our average turnout time for the month was 1 minute and 47 seconds, with approximately 4.8 personnel per response is what the average came out to. Looking at it from a quarterly statistics perspective there, we're up to 232 incidents for the year to date in the borough, and 378 across the board. That includes all of our mutual aid responses. You can see that we provide quite a bit to Spring Township as well as Western Berks. Those are the two most frequently traveled to locations. Training hours for the year to date are 187 and 50, or 187 times. Moving on to the second page, you can see highlighted our districts here for the borough, and a comparison between where we were at for the first quarter of 2023 versus where we are today for 2024. We are down a little bit, roughly 29 incident responses between last year to this year. Really is no way to trend or to analyze whether or not we're going to meet the same call volume, but it is interesting to look at to see where we are increasing or decreasing responses, and some of that goes into how we formulate and provide our pub ed as well as fire prevention activities here within the community. So it can give us a good gauge as to how impactful those are. As far as staff activity, there's some significant items identified there. On March 1st, myself, Technician Smith, and firefighter Okonski responded to a cardiac arrest where our patient walked out of the hospital. She's in rehab now, so that classifies as a clinical safety. Dating back to July 31st of 2023, Captain Yeager, Captain Nestor, and firefighter Okonski responded to a traumatic medical incident. That person also walked out of the hospital. They are being invited to participate in the National Trauma Survivors event at Reading Hospital May 14th to be reunited with this patient. Pretty significant based on what they walked into. And it was all teamwork between our three from the fire department and the staff from Western Berks CMS that day to make it a success. Same with on March 1st. We received a thank you card and a donation for a QRS response February 6th. Firefighter Lambert completed his CDL Class B training here last Friday and earned his commercial driver's license. He's now going to be in the process to test out and get qualified on the ladder truck, which he's done a lot of work on so far. We also had another milestone with firefighter Okonski celebrating his 10th anniversary on March 17th. I'd like to highlight the things that the staff are doing because it's important, and I want to make sure that we're communicating that across the board. We did do some resiliency exercise training. We did that March 4th, 11th, and the 18th at the firehouse, focused on movement and adapting some yoga-style poses to relieve stresses that we endure from wearing the turnout gear, climbing steps, or working on an incident scene. It was well received by the staff. They enjoyed being able to change the terminology from the yoga poses to things that were more realistic and equated to us in the fire service. So they had some fun with it. We also held 2 safety net cooking events. One was held at the firehouse on March 9th where we prepared a dinner, ham, green beans, and potatoes. And we have one coming up on Thursday the 28th for the fire department and police department for breakfast. We prepared a nice warm meal to start off the day. And as far as community engagement goes, we stopped by the Kona Ice pop-up event held at the Stone House on the 16th. Very nice turnout there. It's nice to be out and engage with our community members. The next line item there on the screen is some opportunities for community engagement. We have the stargazing event in the Parklands on the 19th, the Earth Day Fair at Happy Hollow on the 20th, and Sunday the 28th we have the Reading Science Fair being held over at the Drexel School of Medicine that we have already committed to that, to have fire apparatus there, hand out fire prevention materials, and engage with the people that show up to that event.
Chief, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Is it possible that District 3902 is where the inn at Reading is located?
It is.
Yeah, that's
It is.
Thank you.
You're welcome, sir.
You've only visited West Reading 11 times in the first quarter of the year.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Do you have somewhere on your report, any Narcan administrations?
To date, we haven't, as far as I know. I can double check on that and get you a number. We do have it in a spreadsheet, that our QRS officer takes care of on a monthly basis, and I can get that information for you.
Thank you.
I think what you're looking at is a far cry than what we've seen in the past. This is all information that our firefighters have been doing for quite some time and continue to do. We as council just were not made aware of it. So I think we're gonna start seeing a lot of more informational activities come to light and what our guys are actually doing.
Where are we in terms of disentangling from spring?
That's a good question. There's a lot of work that is going on right now, that leads into some other topics here. Before I answer your question fully, does anybody have any other questions on my report there? Okay. My question to the committee would be, what other expectations than what I've provided here do you have for reporting?
I don't know, I'm just used to the same stuff I've been given for the last 9 years.
Yeah, which is just the numbers, and that's all. I think, I think you hit the nail on the head with what you're doing now. And as time goes on, you get more involved in stuff like, specing fire apparatus, personnel. That's all gonna be important issues that's gonna
Absolutely.
affect not only this committee, but, a lot, of finance and so forth. So don't hesitate to bring anything that you feel is necessary.
One of the things that was on the old reports was the dispatch time and the response time. I don't know if that's a statistical information the committee would like to continue to receive. Is that on there?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's right there, that's the 1 minute and 47 second average response time. So that's from the time that our pagers go off in the firehouse till we go responding,
Okay.
calculated
I missed
across
that.
the
Thank
time.
you.
You're welcome, sir.
And the NFPA standard is still 7.
7 for,
Once the pagers go off to get out, 7 minutes.
it depends on which standard you're looking at. In all honesty, it does, because you have the NFPA 1710, which is focusing more on career departments. They also break that down in ISO to NFPA 1710 with an aerial device. You also have NFPA 1720, which is the volunteer and combination departments typically fall into that one, and they break that down into 4 other categories. So the times vary depending on which one we want to look at. I will gladly go back and look and
No need.
understand where we're at.
I was just going on what was reported to us in the past.
Understood. And I mean, at some point, that's going to be a decision that you as a committee have to make. Which one do we want to follow and shoot towards meeting?
If you're happy with how quick our guys are getting out of the station, then we're happy.
Okay?
Yes, that's
I imagine
all.
the turnout time has something to do with where you're going too, right? If you go to Warnersville, it's not gonna be one.
No.
No.
Big time until they get out of the
People
door.
off to
To leave the
both sides.
station.
Not to arrive at the fire
Right.
scene.
It's our leaving.
One person say that.
It's the time, once the pager goes off,
Yeah.
till we leave the station, not till we get to the scene.
All right.
That would be a misleading stat.
Yeah,
It'd be all over.
right.
And there are, when it ties to ISO, there are some correlation between the turnout time, the response or drive time from the firehouse to the scene that we need to be looking at. So we can either A, maintain where we are as a 3Y, or look to progress to better ourselves to maybe a class 2. Those are all goals that we have to look at strategically and figure out how we get there.
Chief, bearing
Yes, sir.
in mind that we did the arrangement with Spring Township for what we considered to be the best of reasons at that time.
Yes, sir.
And now Spring's decided that they can't continue to do what they were doing in that same framework, and we are now going on our own. I know you're still cooperating with Spring in terms of
Absolutely, yes.
fire scene things and so on. But This committee is going to have to advise council in terms of decisions going forward as to whether it's better to be on our own. Should we look for ways to reestablish the arrangement with Spring or somebody else or whatever? So I don't know where you put it in terms of the line items in your report, but I think we have to keep a close watch on, are things getting away from us and we ought to be considering combining with somebody or not?
Understood, and I appreciate your question on the subject of whether or not to stay with being independent or look in the future as to merging with either Spring Township again or another municipality for fire protection. From the stance of incident response, there's a countywide mutual aid agreement that is recertified every year. So regardless, if we specify on our run cards that we want Spring Township responding in, and their dispatch still come, and vice versa, us to them. I think what it boils down to is managing the Wyomissing Fire Department through Wyomissing Borough or somebody else, or managing another department through Wyomissing Borough, or vice versa. There are a lot of layers to the onion that need to be peeled back with where we are now and how we go through this transitional process of separating from Spring Township. There's a lot of things that we were doing together that now need to be done separately. So it's definitely something, to consider down the road and to keep looking at, but I can assure you that the steps that we've made so far with just within the last 2 weeks have been significant as far as changes in morale, changes of the staff being engaged and wanting to do stuff where it hasn't been in the past.
Well, I think we need to also keep an eye on things like, training and
Absolutely.
Equipment.
Yes,
So,
absolutely.
We had kind of evolved to where we had the aerial stuff and they had the pumper or whatever. Are we gonna be evolving back to where we need to have both, and then we need to reflect those costs and stuff in our budget and
So-
whatnot?
So that is another great question there, and the projection with looking at an apparatus needs to take into account the style of calls we're running. If we can combine an apparatus into one piece like we have with the ladder, because that can do rescue, it can do the aerial service as well as has a pump and a tank on it to be able to do fire suppression. If we can do things like that meet the needs within the community, I think we're going in the right direction. Ideally, it would be great to put together, and I'm seeking that today, but put together an apparatus committee with staff that I have at the firehouse to focus on that, to really analyze and dig into the responses that we're doing and be able to identify the fire apparatus that would be best to meet our needs here in the community. Most everybody in the department likes using aerial devices. We've become very proficient in it, plus there's a long history of it being here in Wyomissing. I would enjoy seeing that continue, however, it needs to be a well thought out plan based on what our true needs are.
Thank you.
You're welcome, sir. Okay, I guess I can move through the other stuff now. All right. So, I have a staff meeting scheduled for tonight. We're looking at discussing where we are at in our separation process, identifying some expectations moving forward, as well as looking at our current mission, vision, and values, and really defining values that mean something to us as well as mean something to the community here in Wyomissing. The 4 values that had been posted on everything that was communicated previously weren't ever really defined. So we want to have some sort of meaning that goes along with it so people can actually live those values when they're doing their job. The transitional process, we've so far reviewed our QRS policies and procedures. We've updated our medical director agreement. One of the hiccups that we're currently reviewing is our fire department identification number, which is the county number of 06 and our station number of 79. I can't use that yet for reporting aspects because we share a record management system with Spring Township. So until I get a record management system that is solely Wyomissing, if we reestablish that number, it will cause reporting problems in the current system. So we're working on that. I actually have a meeting this afternoon with one of the vendors that provides a record management system, and I have another one tomorrow morning to go through another demo to really look at them and make the best decision for what we need. There is a cost associated with that. Unfortunately, I don't have a cost right now, but some of the proposed ranges that I've seen out there are anywhere from, I have 12,000 to 18,000 depending on what modules we need. I'm looking for clarification from our EMS council on what our requirements are for reporting our QRS medical pulse. Because that's a module we would have to buy in the program to be able to do that. So I want to make sure we're compliant there. Yes,
If
sir.
you're considering ESL, let me know, because you could probably jump on our consortium pricing.
Okay. Thank you very
That would
much.
lower that,
Okay.
and that could probably also include the fire module,
Okay.
because we have the fire module also.
I'll follow up with you after the meeting then. Okay, fire inspections, we have. Yes,
One
sir.
more thing on that. At some point, I know you have a long list of actions you need to work on, but at some point, you and I and Michelle maybe should sit down and look at the administrative provisions in the Wyomissing code
Yes,
and
sir.
see what, if any, revisions we want to do in terms of an amendment to the ordinances that are in effect for the fire department. I don't think that needs to be looked at until, really what the effective conclusion of our relationship with Spring Township is.
Right.
But it's something that should be on our list.
Okay, very good. Thank you, sir. Michelle and I are meeting with Glenn Kraft this week to look at the fire inspection side of things and see how we can come together, since we already use Kraft, and knowing that the agreement ends June 30th, I want to try and get some sort of idea of where we're going after that.
To interject here, I did reach out to Spring Township as council's request to ask if there would be any desire on their end to continue doing fire inspections through the end of the year, just to buy us some time, and the answer was no.
Is it possible for you to give us, in conjunction with Michelle or whoever else, a number of fire inspection,
How many properties?
how many properties, and to the extent that there's a cost for each one, what you think that might equate to, or
Okay.
whether it would suggest that we could have our own person do this.
Okay.
Because I understand the end result is, if you do a lot of inspections, your ratings go wherever you're supposed to go to make it look
Right.
good.
Right, that the fire inspection and fire prevention all fall into a part of the ISO audit called community risk reduction, and that's worth 5 points. So the more we can do with community engagement, the inspections, the investigations for origin and cause, the more likely we are to get maximum points in. So that also helps down the road when they come back for the next audit. We have a chance to earn as many of those points as possible, which may be a way to bump to the next classification, which is in turn going to save businesses as well as the homeowner on their insurance.
And as a follow-up to that.
Yes, sir.
The idea of having someone who works hand in glove to the development process around here to read plans, et cetera, that would be the same person, so you have two responsibilities.
Okay. Yeah, I'll gladly look into that. We can do a cost benefit analysis and make sure that it's something feasible. All right, moving on to, let's see here, like I said earlier, looking to put together an apparatus committee made up of personnel from the fire department to focus on reviewing what apparatus needs we have, formulating an apparatus replacement plan that we can come together and follow. But the idea would be to work towards specifying an apparatus to become a frontline piece. I know that we're 2 to 3, possibly 4 years out from the new piece of fire apparatus being placed in service just because of the way manufacturers work, et cetera. So I want to start that process sooner than later so that we're not waiting till something happens to put something together. Also looking to put together a training committee to focus on meeting the ISO requirements for training. That'll be made up of personnel from within the department. Both of those committees are twofold so that have engagement when people are on duty. They have a project that they can work on. It creates more engagement, it helps boost the morale, and makes it even more meaningful to be there, as well as responding to calls. The next item that I have on the agenda here is promotional testing for captain and technician. We currently have a vacancy that was created by my promotion to fire chief. There's a vacancy for a captain's position. We're currently filling through our overtime process to make sure that we meet our minimum staffing of 3 personnel per shift every day. But I am seeking to start that process for running a captain's promotional process.
Somebody needs to make a
Okay,
motion.
somebody wish to make a motion to activate the Civil Service Commission?
There's actually 2 motions
There-
related to that. One
Right.
is for captain and one
And
is
the
for
other for
technician.
fire, right. Okay, let's do captain first. We have a motion,
I'll
second,
second.
motion second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
Okay. The promotion of a captain would create a vacancy for a technician. So I would be seeking to have a motion for running the testing process for the technician promotion.
Do we have any kind of a active list now, or are we going through that?
We do not have an active list for that.
Okay.
I'll make that motion.
Second. Motion and second to activate the Civil Service Commission for the position of technician. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, so be it.
Okay. My next item on the list would be the entry-level firefighter hiring. We currently have a Civil Service Commission certified entry-level list from our last testing. That would be to fill that last vacancy that's created through the promotional process, to have 3 people assigned to A shift, 3 to B shift, and we have the 4 people currently assigned to C shift.
So if we hire this person, are we staying within what we budgeted for the year, number of firefighters? Then I'll make that motion.
Motion and second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
To
The ayes
add,
have it.
to add to that, Steve, there's potentially a cost savings too, because we have another employee that's been out for a significant period on a workers' comp injury. So right now, with Ethan's promotion to chief, his spot is open as well as that other spot.
I just want to clarify under the CBA, would this be what was sort of tagged as the 25 position?
No, this is filling a vacant position
That's
of
what-
the existing 10 that is now 9.
Okay, so this is a vacancy, it's not one of the CBA mandated increases in staff. Okay.
Correct.
Yeah, we did that last year for this year, because there was
That's what I was trying to
availability.
clarify.
That's what I was getting at.
Yeah.
The next item on the list is the possible hiring of a deputy fire chief. You know, it was discussed before. Looking for some feedback on what the committee's expectations of a person in that role would be, so that when the time comes, we would have a draft job description that would be able to be proposed. I do have it listed on here that I have been working on one with the intent to propose it at the April 16th Personnel Committee meeting. I want to make sure that that's still an avenue that the committee and the council want to go.
I think it has to be you certainly can't run 24/7 now. You know, we have, very capable captains, that can, run a call, until we get a chief there. But we can certainly explore, having a deputy chief's position as we did before.
Okay.
So, at least anybody else chime in, with their thoughts.
And that comes, I'm just thinking of the financial side of it, that comes with potentially someone moving up from within the department. Then we have to hire another one that is not included in the CBA. Correct? So make sure I'm saying that right.
Yeah.
Correct.
And do we have, I gotta start bringing the budget with me, I'm sorry, but do we have the deputy chief in the budget at all for this year?
Maybe not.
Any other questions on that? So, let's just keep going forward, and, if we hit a snag along the way, we'll address that as time.
So is there an acting deputy chief now?
No, sir.
So,
We're using the shift captains.
Yes.
so we're using someone, we're not calling him an acting deputy chief, we're using captains.
That is correct.
And
That's how it has been working fine. It'll work better and be more consistent once we do the promotional process and have somebody in the third captain role. That's all I have. If anybody has any other questions, thank you for the
I
time.
just wanna go back to the apparatus.
Yes, sir.
No.
Now that we're no longer being managed by Spring, is the intent to buy a new apparatus at some point in the future gonna fit what Wyomissing needs? Or is it gonna analyze what West Reading has and Spring has in addition to what we're looking for?
So those aspects of what our neighboring municipalities have for apparatus does play into it. However, the focus is on what is going to meet our needs here within the borough. So we're gonna look at the call volume, the types of calls that we're responding on, the maneuverability, plus the serviceability of the apparatus, to make sure that it is something that actually is justifiable for meeting our needs here in the borough.
Realistically, how long would it take to fill the captain position?
Realistically,
4 months?
it could be 2 to 3 months. The problem is that there is no captain's written test in the civil service regulations. It requires a written test as well as an oral interview. So have to create that and then have the Civil Service Commission approve it so that we can use it. I believe we could probably streamline it since it's a promotional opportunity in-house instead of dragging it out over a couple of months. If we could streamline it, maybe we could condense it into a month and do the written exam followed the next week by the oral interview panel.
Assuming the Civil Service Commission meets.
Yes, yes.
So I'm sure your last 2 years, you've got plenty of notes on how to pull one of these things together effectively.
I've got a lot of resources as well as networking that I can reach out to and get some good direction on what has been done in other places, some smaller, some larger organizations, and make sure that we're doing what would be accepted across the board.
I think I'd like to say that what we're doing here and going back to our own department is a significantly big move that needs to be well communicated to the public. I was convinced when we made the choice, Chief, that you were the right guy, and you've done nothing to make me have any second thoughts.
I appreciate that, thank you.
Does the fire department, along those lines, does the fire department send out anything, like a newsletter, and I'm just talking about for Fire Safety Day or Fire Prevention Day?
We
That's
haven't.
like in September, right?
It's in October, and it's usually been communicated with the borough-wide newsletter that goes out. We did at one point put together calendars and send them out, but with the changes to get them to our residents, that the Postal Service had done maybe 7, 8, 10 years ago now, made it very daunting.
The police department has a Facebook thing, right? Just the fire department?
The fire department has a Facebook as well as Instagram page that,
I think we need to start, I agree with Fred, this is a big financial, I don't want to say burden, but it is a financial burden, it's a good thing.
Undertaking.
Okay, that's a better word. I think we need to let the community know what's going on, that we're hiring X number of people, we're taking our fire department from this size to this size, and we're in the very, very, very early phases of buying purchasing a new apparatus.
okay,
I think it's something we gotta start getting out there, because people don't understand, when they find out we're no longer attached to Spring, they don't, okay, great.
right,
They have no idea that it means it's 4 more, 5 more people.
yeah.
So, well, yeah, I got that. I said, what's this? I read on Facebook, said we were attached to Spring. What happened? What, you know, I said, calm down.
Most of your residents aren't even aware you have a paid department. They think anybody showing up.
But I
is
think we need to
volunteers.
make them aware, because this is gonna be,
Yeah.
this is gonna affect their taxes one way or the other. Not one way or the other, one way.
Right, yeah. I don't know why the Reading paper didn't publish anything. I talked to them long enough about it, but, you know, they just felt it wasn't newsworthy, I guess.
But so my point was, sometime around fire prevention, safety, whatever that day's called in October.
Month,
Month.
it's a month.
Okay.
That might be a good time to get it out, gives you plenty of time to get something ready.
Would you guys, would the committee be opposed to, starting a more proactive social media campaign? I mean, we're not only looking at,
I wouldn't be.
we're not only looking at hiring people, but we're also considered a combination fire department. So one of the goals is to try and inspire and create opportunities for
Volunteers.
volunteers.
Excellent point.
I think it's a
So-
great idea.
Okay.
Well, I'll tell you, you know, and I mentioned to you, Ethan, that I'd like you and John to get together. Have you start going to career days at the school, you know, and do what John does. You know, we need to get, you know, in the face, and you're starting off very well, you know, let the people know who we are, that we really do have a fire department.
Okay.
But also let them know things like how the ISO rating
Yeah.
is improving and how that affects them.
So,
And let
Absolutely.
them know how, what a short period of time it takes to leave the station after the pages have gone, things like that.
I'm now a step ahead on one number 4, I'm already on Tony's point, but I think at the same time, we need to notify people, again, maybe use it at that time, that the borough has paid for everybody to be a member of
Yeah,
whatever the terminology is, Tony's there, the Western Berks Ambulance Association.
absolutely.
So you keep returning checks.
right.
Yeah, because of that, people
Bill
don't know.
makes an excellent point in terms of the school. I know, I have a grandson who's a senior, and the kids are well aware of the police department. I don't believe they are nearly as aware of the fire department.
No, and that's unfortunate. We've been there, we do go over, we do witness fire drills for them. The career day that happened this past November, I think it was, unfortunately, we didn't have anybody available that could go. Like Michelle had pointed out, we've been inundated with working people multiple overtime shifts because we have some voids that really need to be filled. Ultimately, my goal would be to get over there not only for their career day, but to be more of a presence, to be able to sit down with their administrative staff and talk about fire safety concerns, make sure that they are trained to use fire extinguishers. If that's something we can do, it gives us an opportunity for the staff to meet them and vice versa. Plus, it also gets us out there.
It's a wonderful idea.
Excellent.
Have access to that point pass system. Just call me ahead of time.
Okay.
Anybody else have anything? Just real quick, and I believe both of you know, we have an artist among us. Fire Commissioner Jared Renshaw, Western Berks Fire Department. And I say an artist because he is taking this piece of clay here, and he's going to mold him
I think he's doing just fine.
I think he is too, but just to bring him up to speed with what's going on locally, okay, that he may not be aware of, that Jared is, and Jared is the individual who, we approved hiring, as a mentor, and, you know, we're certainly fortunate to have you working with us.
Yeah, it's, I'll just get up here now, make it a little bit easier instead of sitting behind, hiding in the corners.
That's why I sat on this side for you, buddy.
I don't need the spotlight.
It's my seat.
No, it's, I've been very blessed to have a really good professional working relationship with Ethan now. Since I got to Western Berks back in 2015, we just kind of, you know, hit it off back then and just kind of meshed really well. And, you know, it's been a pleasure working with him and to be asked to be on the interview panel, and then to move forward with this. I mean, we've already had, I don't even know how many meetings we've probably already sat down and phone conversations and emails. You know, for myself, hey, I always like to see people succeed in the fire service. I think it's where I am all by myself. So to be able to help Ethan out is great. To be able to open him up to my network of friends and peers in the fire service, you know, definitely be a big benefit for him, but then also a benefit for the borough and as well. So, you know, I'm always available if anybody has any questions or anything, but I'll be in, you know, good communication with Michelle and, you know, moving forward with Mr. Jenks, you know. But if anybody has anything, you know, feel free to reach out to me, text me, email me, you know. So.
Thanks, Jeremy.
You're welcome.
Thank you. I'll sit back over there.
Maybe seats are a lot more comfortable.
I'm good.
Yeah, those are more comfortable if you want to sit.
Yeah, but I'd probably be asleep by now, so. Not that the meeting's boring, I was up all night with a 6-7-year-old, so I'm probably, yeah.
Okay. Nothing else, we're gonna move on to Antonio and Western Berks.
So, we had 248 calls for service, for the month of February. As you can see, the running total there, coming up, we had 569 for the year. Our Narcan administrations, when you start to go down, have ticked up a lot. I think we're up into the 13s now.
Yeah.
I don't know why. We have never been, it's usually fire and police that are pushing the Narcan. I don't know if you guys are getting gun shy on Narcan or something, but we're really pushing a lot of it lately. You can see the breakdown of what we had down there for transported versus non-transported, and the breakdown of where we went to hospitals. Again, 87% of them go to Tower Health. And again, I have the breakdown of the shift reports, and again, that's just telling you what shift took calls out of you. We have a 5 to 5 truck, we have a 7 to 19, we have a 10 to 22, day shift or night shift, just to break down where our shifts are. Because again, we're looking at demand analysis and where we need the most demand, instead of having just a stagnant shift coverage. And Monday through Friday is where our demand gets higher, so we have those extra trucks on during the day. The level of service of calls, the basic life support, the advanced life support, downgrade and others. Again, our nursing home calls, Country Meadows, 9%, Country Meadows Building 2, 10%, and 2 others. And then the Highlands were 78% of the breakdown of the nursing home calls, and those numbers. And then down below that, we have our unit breakdowns of what units responded to calls within the borough, and then our Narcan treatments year to date, system-wide. And then our responding, 1 minute and 17 seconds, and that's dispatch to wheels moving. Our responding to on scene is 10 minutes and 41 seconds, understanding that there are calls we cannot go lights and sirens to, that we just don't. Again, the use of lights and sirens is actually going back the opposite way now to not using them, that it's not really saving time. The average on scene time is 12 minutes. Our call volume in the area going down to break down in the slice of pie. And as you can see, our multiple areas that we service and where the breakdown is. Some of the other notes of point for the month, I attended that we had held a small municipality meeting for the municipalities up towards the west of Robizonia. Every municipality that we serve was representative. They were all very receptive to the same conversation that you attended. A couple of them were like, wow, this is kind of a no-brainer, and they really had their eyes open. The next night we had the CELG dinner, which primarily all focused on EMS. And as the mayor said, that in other past CELG dinners, people talked during the speaker, but no one talked during this guy. I thought he was good. I thought there were some points he was a little outdated on, but again, I was a little, it's not me up there talking, I really don't really care, you know, no. And then the other night, Jared and I had the opportunity to teach our newly elected leaders through the CELG, talk about EMS and fire, and we also talked about that, the EMS and crisis and breaking down the EMS billing paradigm as I've got the new language for it. Because again, we're breaking it down for that. We're in the process of scheduling. I have access now to the 1-hour film documentary of Honorable but Broken, EMS and Crisis. So we're going to look, trying to see if we can have it at the Miller Center or the GovWorks or somewhere there that we can invite everyone from the county in, hold another big function so that everyone can have the 1-hour viewing of it, and then have a lot of shows, you know, props outside front, this is how much things cost and with all the services, so that's where we're heading.
Is that the next step now from the meeting that we had?
So,
about that?
I think the next step is, one, is trying to get municipalities all across in our area on board, at least with the municipal membership, to put the tourniquet on. I think the next steps would be if we had municipalities who had a flavor for it, I believe we have a couple, if they were gonna do a municipal type authority, and I think that would be Dan Becker and that, creating that, going that route. And I think that would be our big 5 or 6 that are already splitting the bill. I was a little upset that they didn't mention how much total money a lot of our municipalities are giving, especially the number, like coming out and saying, well, there are 6 municipalities that are giving close to $1 million, while the other 65 of you are doing next to nothing. I thought that would have been a good hard hit home in that conversation.
You can make a NATO speech.
Yeah.
So you're still moving ahead with getting the formation of the authority?
I think that's the next logical step with the big 5, at least, if that's the way that the municipalities have the flavor for it.
Okay. Very cool.
Tony, I have a question. How are you guys doing these days in terms of personnel?
We're doing all right. For some reason, EMTs seem to be the low number right now. We've got a couple EMTs that spots that still remain filled. But again, we're doing our own internal training. We're sending them over to Muhlenberg to get trained. You know, we're bringing, we pay them to go to EMT school. We're paying them to go to paramedic school with the commitment to do years of service, because I mean that's the only way we can try and lure them in. We have an intern program right now where we have kids from Governor Mifflin, Fleetwood, Hamburg, Wyomissing, Wilson, Conrad Weiser, and I think Daniel Boone. No, Exeter and Daniel Boone. Governor Mifflin has 14 students, I believe, that want to do some type of internship in the EMS field. And again, they want to use it as a stepping stone to go to their nursing or their PA or wherever else. And some of them want to do it during the summer. They're doing it for a grade. Some of them want to do it during the school year, so they come to us for half a day. I believe, Jared, you guys did something similar with that a couple of years ago with Ethan and a couple others. And that helps get us a couple. You know, we've hired a bunch of those students we've had good success with it. We're finding the program a little more. The word's gotten out. I think we have like 24, 25 now that want to do it. So, get them young.
Thank you.
Everything's still going fine with the ambulance being at the fire station and stuff? That's everything's good there? Okay.
It's usually one of only 2 crews that are there.
Good. Okay, anything else for Western Berks? Thank you, Tony. Okay, moving on to the police department. John?
Good afternoon, everyone. First, I would requesting a motion to either table, approve, or deny the requested handicap space that came in for 1651 Delaware Avenue. I have all the paperwork. The individual does not have off-street parking. There is already a handicap parking space in the middle of the block on the opposite side of the road. it has been, the past that you've allowed it on both sides of the road like that. So there is none on this side of the street in that 100 block.
Assumption being made that the one that's already there is being used, all of them.
Yeah, that, yes, that is being used. That was actually one that is, the Beck residence, Pete's house, we approved that last year, I believe, for his daughter. So that is being used.
Who's house?
If you added,
Peter Beck.
Peter Beck.
Okay.
if you add another one, would this be helpful to the person who's requesting it, or is it so far down the other side of the road?
The one that's already there, that's mid-block. This new one, the request is at the end of the block. It's
So
up
where's
by,
the person that needs it, is like, you have to walk to Wilburg to get to the handicap space. You just put it there, but it has no functionality.
well, there's one in the middle of the block, but as I said, that was for another resident. This new resident lives at the opposite end of the block.
So is it gonna be at the opposite? end of the
Yes.
block? Oh, okay.
I'll make a motion to approve it. Second.
Motion second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
After our last council meeting and the citizen comment about the parking in the 900 block of Hill Avenue, he asked me to take a look at that area and see if there was anything that we may be able to do. So I went down with Greg the other day and we took some measurements of some things and I took some pictures. So one of the things that you're looking at right there is actually the 1000 block, where I know I personally, and I think Michelle may have also told the person that owns the business there, where some of their clients could park, because it is no parking on both sides of the road.
Meaning it is parking.
Right, I'm sorry, you can park, it's not restricted. So I took a picture showing that Greg's truck is there, my vehicle is there, and traffic going through. So there is an issue if we have parking on both sides of the road in the 1000 block of Hill, that you're really gonna get one car at a time through. You're not gonna be able to fit 2 cars through. And I know that there's a possibility of future improvements to that area, possible future additional apartments, which I believe is going to create more traffic going in and out of that area. So I think one of the things to consider is, at the end of the block there is George Avenue, and that is do not enter. It's one way coming up from Penn Avenue. That the committee and then council may wish to consider continuing this one way down the 1000 block so that traffic would have to come up and down. And I believe I have another picture at the end of the block, maybe later on. We make that do not enter, I think it's towards the end. Right there, so right there is the end of Hill Avenue, that 1000 block. We make that do not enter versus a no outlet, which signs are there. And we just make it one way coming down, so that we would be able to then continue parking on both sides to keep the number of spaces available to people, and also keep it so that we're not worrying about cars trying to then pass each other on that narrow roadway. But then as far as the parking considerations, the business there on the right-hand side was the individual that made the public comment. In looking at this, if we were to do anything, you can see that there's now a no parking sign there. What I would suggest we could do is move that sign closer to the crosswalk, meaning we need to have 20 feet from the crosswalk to the no parking. In other words, a car can't park within 20 feet of the crosswalk. So then from that no parking signs new location, we have approximately 72 feet until the driveway where she has her garage, and then she's put a sign for handicap for the employee or for her customers and such. If at 18 feet a space, we get 4 spaces then there. If we did a 20-foot, you get a little less than 4, it's like 3.6 is what it comes out to. So we could conceivably give up to 4 additional spaces on the street right there. I would leave it then no parking until we get to where the residences are up there on the right-hand side where we are allowing parking there. And so that way that our crosswalks that we have in the middle of the block, we have good sight distances for the cars traveling, seeing people. There's a little alleyway between her driveway or her garage right there and the parking lot. You know, people are gonna be able to see, it's not gonna be blocked, that type of thing. The thing that I think everybody would need to understand utilizing those spaces, it's just like up at the residence, I mean, it's a public street, so that means people that are utilizing the businesses at the block, those customers will be able to utilize those spaces. They're not saved for any particular business or residence or such, so.
And it never was before either, correct?
Right, no. But I think that we might be able to give some relief to the people in that area, if we did that. Like I said, it's only gonna be 4 spaces, but it's something that we can do. That 4 space, you can see where Greg is standing right there in that photo. That's a driveway that leads to nowhere, so I don't believe that they would mind if we block that. We just would have to stop it there before her garage is.
Chief, the city of Reading says that by putting lines for parking spaces, they actually get more cars parked in an area. Would you recommend that lines be put in to make it clear where the spaces are?
We did that up at the residence, I would, because I wanna, I've also talked to them, we don't do it often, but because it's not really clear because we have loading zones on the other side, I've asked that we actually paint the curbs in this area, so it really helps the people understand, you know, that they're not gonna park in the yellow. And they put hash marks on the road up in front of the residence that we could do it here. They're temporary lines right now, but when Jim has explained, once it gets warmer, they do line painting, they would do it more permanently. So, I don't know if it's something that the committee and council would wish to consider, but I think we can get up to 4 additional spaces if we were so inclined to.
Well, if we're gonna stay on this issue and then move on to the rest of the block, we want to cover all the issues regarding the block and then go back to this particular situation.
Well, I don't know, I'm sorry, I don't know, it's all one issue, I thought, it was
Okay.
one spot. I was just trying to show in the 1,000 block that might be something we need to do in the future, especially if this development occurs in that area, that's gonna cause a lot of traffic. We've told the owner of that hair salon right there in the corner specifically that she could have her customers park across the street there, but, you know, it is a narrower road, so it is, if we get both sides of that street parked up, we're not going to, you know, it's too narrow to have cars going opposite directions then as well. So it might be something we wanna consider in the future about perhaps making that a one-way coming off of George. But for the immediate, for relief for this business and maybe the residents around Reading, and customers going to the block, we could provide those 4 additional spaces there, which would be the southwest corner of the 900 block at Hill.
What do we lose by making that a one-way street, 1,000 block?
Highway,
Yeah, that's my question.
that's the other part, because they don't double yellow line there, other than that.
Just up to the park.
Yeah, basically, but there's an entranceway actually at the
Oh,
top end off to the right.
Here,
Well, I talked to at least 3 of the people that are now in there operating, and they're saying it's not too inconvenient yet, but it will get very inconvenient when the Pilates place opens, especially the UPS store UPS truck is gonna park at either end and not park in front of the UPS store is wishful thinking. So the subject came up of possibly, with regard to people that are there because they went shop or whatever it is, having a 30-minute parking on that side of the street rather than no parking. Because their comment was basically, we just invested a ton of money here, and if you have all this space there in the morning, if someone wants to stop and grab a cup of coffee or something, that short-term parking, it might be abused, but maybe not, but at least the opportunity's there. And as far as the trucks go, I mean, I guess at the end of the day, a truck, whether it's UPS or it's, any of the other guys, they're gonna pull up in front of these places and get out and it's make the delivery. It's wishful thinking if they all park on either end. So we can either wait until it's full and they'll come back and make comments, or we can take it to heart now and think of whether or not it makes any sense to do that.
I think the reason why this was done originally was because I showed pictures for the 1,000 block, but the 900 block is wider, but it's still very tight if we have parking on both sides of the road and then want traffic to both be able to go east and west at the same time. So I think you have to take that into consideration. If we allow even just short time parking in front of the block, then, we're risking having some crashes right there. The other thing I think we need to consider is we did allow for the crosswalks center block there, the two. I think we want to try to make sure we're creating as much sight distance for the vehicles traveling on Hill Avenue, to see these people stepping off the curbs, not coming out between parked cars, and that type of thing to cross in the middle of the road. Now, when Greg and I were out there the other day, I did take notice to several people not even utilize, they're just, like people are gonna do, they're gonna walk wherever, they're not utilizing those crosswalks, they're going just in the middle of the road. But, I mean, we're trying to provide them the safest possible locations across.
Well, I thought it was interesting because I ran up and down there several times the last couple of weeks. That parking lot that's directly across is full. It's full of people that work there, and they're not even full yet, all the stores. So that thought that that's gonna provide parking for people who want to shop there is wrong.
Well, I mean, that parking lot, it's not just that parking lot. They have the parking lot available to them up at Park Road, both sides really, of Hill Avenue along Park Road. And then the parking lot that is at Reading Avenue and Penn Avenue is part of all of this complex. I mean, I think what those business owners would need to do is probably tell their employees, park at those far lots so that the closer spaces are for customers, but that's not out of our hands, that's up to them.
But they can, where those two red cars are, that general area can have a 30-minute sign on it or whatever.
That's private parking.
That's private.
But they can, the private owner can do that.
Correct, it's already currently signed, parking for patrons of the block tenants, and they list all
Well,
of them.
but those two red cars can be put in.
You can't make a 30-minute park because you're going to dinner at
Well,
the
then
dinner
an
spot.
hour.
No, not.
But you can't, plus,
Some.
how are you gonna enforce it?
That's
We
your
don't
problem.
have a traffic
No, I mean,
enforcement
what-
or parking authority.
Private lot too.
Most people will respect it.
Yeah, that's not,
I mean, the parking, since the signs have gone up and we spent, I told our officers a month of issuing warnings, it took about 2 weeks. We issued a bunch of warnings, and if you go through there, they're pretty much adhering to as it is now, the parking restrictions.
I'm not opposed to the chief's recommendation, but Mrs. Bear needs to know, not this Mrs. Bear, but Mrs. Bear needs to realize that these are public spaces, these are not for
They were
her.
before though, too.
Right,
I mean,
until she put her own signs up.
Put signs up on our property though.
No, she put them up
On
in
the
the
borough
landing
trees.
strip.
Oh, that you gotta take that, no,
And I would go the same, that we're doing this not for her, but for the whole area, okay? Because last thing we need is, you know, the Wyomissing barbers to say, okay, well, you did this over there, what are you gonna do for me for parking over here across the street?
I go there the second Wednesday every month, and they have no problem with parking along. If you go that one way, could be the one-way street, sometimes there's plenty of parking.
Well, that's because they know you're coming, that's why.
There's always a spot for them.
Think about cones there.
Concierge parking, right?
No, there's plenty of parking there.
Well, at the end of the day, we have to realize that at some point, all those stores are gonna be full. And just tell everybody, we're just gonna wait until it plays out.
Well,
After it
I
plays
think
out.
it's a good point that they should be consider putting 30-minute parking in, because when Primo Hoagies comes in, you know.
Steve's
it's-
gonna have a permanent spot.
Right, I might get one.
All day,
True.
just buy it.
But at the end
Not
of
me.
but, you know, they would like to be able to just run in, get at their sandwich, and get out.
Right,
But there's there's restaurants and other places that you're gonna be there, Pilates.
I mean, one of the things I've been telling, as I've been down there, and all my officers were there, and when I was down with Greg looking at this stuff, and people ask me about it, I tell them, I try to get them to liken it, like if they're in a shopping center, there's always the traffic way between the parking spaces and the front of the business, that cars aren't parking right up to the building. So I said Hill Avenue is kind of like that traffic way on that private parking lot of that business. It's just, they're not parking there, you have to park back here, you know, and I explained how we're trying to keep it safe for people to cross, and it's a little narrow when cars are parked on both. People seem to get it, but I mean, people want convenience, I mean, that's the nature of Americans, right? You want the easiest way, so.
I think the idea of the 4 parking spots that you talked about, just run with that. I do agree with, if we lined them up further up the block, then we should line them there.
So I guess that's gonna need, because that's an ordinance, so we would need
Need a motion
to,
to have the ordinance prepared.
right, the ordinance to be rewritten or amended to allow those spaces.
Can I ask another question?
They'll supply them one way.
This is a general question. I know the borough hates this. I know they hate it, especially the public works guys. But does it make any sense to put a little bit of a raised walkway there? And I know they hate it because plowing and all that other good stuff, but.
You mean the speed humps kind of thing?
Not a speed hump, like that. So when I go to the beach, there's a
Sidewalk.
walkway
Yeah.
from one side to the other, and the whole thing is raised, the whole.
So it's like your
5 or 6
crosswalk is
feet.
raised.
Like the crosswalk.
Raised crosswalk.
So that means like a speed hump is what it
It
is.
is a speed hump.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
Right, but I'm not talking about just those little speed.
No, there's a difference between a speed bump and a speed hump. The humps are probably 12 or 15
The
feet
back of my car
wide.
can tell you that very easily.
I discussed, if you remember, when we had the residents at Lawndale about the speed after the dog was hit, I mentioned some things for reducing speed, and speed humps are one of the things I said in that presentation. I mean, it's a possibility, sure, but
And
I'm
we're gonna have a lot
not
of
seeing,
foot traffic
we're not
there.
seeing
I know
speed
we're gonna
yet.
do it.
I'm not getting any complaints, and I don't have, next month I'll be putting the signs back up. And I can put the signs up to see what kind of speeds we're getting on Hill, to let us know if speed is an issue
But the
there.
reality of it is, there is absolutely no parking on the same side of the street as all the vendors.
Besides loading and unloading.
Besides
Besides loading and
running.
unloading, correct. And I have a feeling that's gonna continue because there's not enough room to park on both sides. But if we're trying to force people to go across the road, there is one spot in the borough where everybody has to cross that street at that spot to get one of those 5 or 6 places. If our guys can't slow down to plow, that's our own fault.
Yeah, I think that makes perfect sense. It's not that long a place, and you don't want people speeding down there anyway, and one crosswalk isn't big.
Yeah, because when my dad goes to the restaurant and he's on his walker and he's trying to get across the street, he needs a little bit more time than.
Well, there are 2 crosswalks, I mean, it's something, it's something, if the borough wishes to consider putting those in, there's 2 crosswalks in the middle of that block, so I mean, maybe you wanna consider not just the one, but
Yeah,
2.
I have no problem with that.
I don't know if there are any warrants for that, that's something we have to look at.
Okay, so
I'm sorry, Eddie, what?
Are there any warrants that are required in order to have that elevated
I don't think so.
crosswalk?
I don't think so.
Well, I'm sure, as I'm sitting here, there's gonna be issues when all those trucks start coming in to drop off stuff. They're gonna ignore the no parking. Certainly UPS is. If you see the UPS guy at the other end of the block, then he's probably gonna lose his job. And the Amazon guy and all those people, they're gonna pull right up and pull right out. And they're gonna think, it's just me. But once he leaves, the next one's coming in. So we need to consider either ignore it or write a lot of tickets and buy that fire truck.
We've been trying for so many years, and Fred, you're probably the only person remembering back when that was built, the first place to get those properties filled.
Yeah, 15 years.
Let's make it safe for the people, and I think we can throw that in the infrastructure at some point, but I will make the motion to go ahead and change, to come up with an ordinance to park those 4 parking spots.
And no item.
And the line on the 1100 block, is it 1100 or 900 block?
That's the 900.
900 block of
Hills are.
11.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
Next, I just wanted to,
So what are we
We're
doing?
gonna
Wait a
make a
minute.
motion on George, make it one way.
I don't,
well, I mean, I don't know if you need, I was just, I mean, if you wanna do that now, I guess that's fine, but I'm not saying you do that now, I'm saying for future, if that development occurs,
Right, but we're talking about not waiting,
But
getting people
I
used
see
to
no
it.
reason to wait that one way on the.
Yeah, if we're making changes down there now, let's go ahead and make
I just
Well,
want
I
to
mean,
make,
that's-
I just want to make sure it's not affecting anybody, any residents in that.
well,
I will make it one way too, but we gotta know the full.
I mean, they're just gonna have
implications before we vote on it.
there's 2 entrances into the Met. They can go at the top there by George,
And if they're
and
coming
then
from that
there's,
way, they can-
there's that Reading Avenue kind of extends straight back, they can enter
And if
through
there's
there
an
as well.
emergency, there's no real issue, because people can just back out and go left. Yeah, I would just like to make sure we're not.
I don't think there's much of an issue with the net, but I think it could be an issue with this proposed parking permit.
yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Talking about here, is that where we had the fire issue the other day?
Yes.
Yes, yeah, we had that fire issue.
We, Ethan, Brian and I are resolving that.
Yes, we will.
I'm resolving this.
Which I think we think the chief should take more, do a little bit more.
I think we gotta do a little
Investigate
research
it.
before we do it. I agree that I'd rather do it than not do it, but.
I think put it sooner rather than later.
I mean, I don't know what the status of all that is and what it's looking at, I think we have some time to kind of look at everything.
Yeah, I think we should.
Nothing, I
That
mean,
one-
I
that
don't know
one-
if it's gonna be,
even
come
I
to
would
fruition or
think
not,
it's
I don't know.
Well, the other piece to that is when that eventual project would go through the planning commission, I would expect traffic planning and design, who's the borough's engineer, would be looking at
And
that.
how soon do you think that might happen?
I've
think
not
you-
heard anything from them since they came to economic development, what was that, October, November?
What block? In the 1,000 block?
It's not really, it's actually a Burn Road address at the moment, so that vacant parking lot in front of like Baja Beach and the Army Recruiting Center, that is part of the Met.
Parking area.
Oh, okay.
So they would subdivide that lot off and then develop it.
Across from Russo's.
But still, if
No,
they wanted-
further,
if they
way
wanted to
further
leave
out.
that building, if they wanted to leave there, they could go out, just out to behind the post office, wherever that is, and turn right. If they wanna go left, they just go down.
Well, I mean, George Avenue coming up is one way coming up.
Right, but if you're going, I'm just saying, you go out the same parking lot exit as you do when you go to the works.
No, cause
Nope,
No,
that's
not-
that's all fenced
That's
off.
not part of it, no.
Ew.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they would have to come down to Reading Avenue, make the right,
And then
come
make
out
the
the
right
Penn,
again.
use the
Yeah.
light, yeah, make the right again, that's what they have.
I think we should just research that to make sure it's, because we want to develop.
Throw everything into the pot to research it.
So like I said, I think it makes sense if this does happen, and as Michelle said, they're gonna have to do traffic study, and that might help us make that.
Okay.
Did we vote on
But
that?
Ethan, are you able to, there's parking on both sides, I can get the aerial between cars?
We're not parking on those.
We can, I mean, there's access from both the Works parking lot as well as from George, but that's in other discussions right now with the county as far as the addresses and how we wanna prioritize access to that strip mall there where Baja Beach is. So
For future reference, don't feel, feel free to chime in on your concerns on
Yeah,
issues.
talk about the one.
The 900 block,
They can all tie together.
yeah, they kind of tie together.
Okay, so we're just gonna table that other thing for right now?
Yeah, no,
Okay, right, okay.
developer should be right in the 900 block.
Alright, cool, moving on.
I just wanted to make the committee aware of a checkpoint that we ran on March 16th. It was very active. We had 419 vehicles go through the checkpoint between 10:30 and 1:30 in the morning. We ended up making 10 arrests for DUI, 9 were alcohol, 1 was for narcotic impairment. We also made an additional arrest for somebody with possession of drugs. One of the rovers made a stop of a person, found out they were wanted, had a stolen firearm on them. So it was very productive. It's usually busy when we do it here in the
The
borough.
bad guys aren't getting any smarter.
So it's, we did it right there at, on Penn Avenue at Wyoming. So we spoke with the businesses there, in the 14 and 1500 block when they ended and began, and we were utilizing those for our vehicles and for the testing locations.
Go see Doe.
Other side.
They probably saw a cop car there and just figured it was the,
Other
they there
side.
all the time.
Next, I spoke with everyone, if you recall, about the enforcement of the school bus violations. I said that I had a meeting with the school district, and it looks like the legislature has taken out all the concerns that I had with enforcing that section of the vehicle code. I obtained a copy of an intergovernmental agreement from the Wilson School District. I gave it to our solicitor, and he has come back with a few changes he thinks. Maybe you could talk to that a little bit more. Since
Yeah,
you're-
there are a couple of issues with the draft that we got from the school district. One is that they are referencing a lot of obsolete provisions from the earlier version of the statute, so I've cleaned that up. And then the other part of it is that the police department will not be the enforcer of this regulation. It's a civil penalty. The police department will facilitate the civil enforcement by reviewing video of the infraction and certifying whether or not, in the opinion of the police department, a violation has occurred. We turn that over to the school district or their contracted agent for the actual civil enforcement. So the language in the agreement is a little misleading in indicating that we would be enforcing this regulation. We will not be enforcing it. We will be assisting the school district or its representative in enforcing it. So all the changes are of the nature I just described, of cleaning up the statutory references and clarifying the limited role that the police department has in this civil enforcement process. So if council is agreeable, or if the committee is agreeable to the police department assisting the school district with this, I'd recommend that it be on the basis of the revisions that I'm recommending.
So when I had the meeting, I asked specifically if the borough had any issues with the IGA that they came up with, if they, if there were revisions, would they be okay with it? They seemed fine with it. They said they just took something from the company bus patrols, what they wrote up, and just basically used that as for their IGA. If there was some concerns and changes needed to be made, they would be open to it. So what I would need to do though is we need to get it to the school to make sure that they're okay with the revisions, too. And then the other question I had though is, it has me listed still, Chris, as the signer. I thought, signing these type of agreements, you wanted that to come from, not the
Yeah.
chief, but the, either
Yeah,
council president
You're
or
right about
mayor.
that. We do have an IGA with the school districts that the chief signs, but it's on a different subject. It's like the safe school stuff. So I agree, that's what I had in mind when I looked at that part of it. But I agree, chief, it should be the borough, not you, and as the chief. So I'll add that as an additional comment. I don't know if you sent this on.
No, I was waiting till this meeting to.
Well, let me make that additional change. Also, I wanted to point out to you, Chief, the way this was drafted, it said that it's in force as long as the school district has a contract with the company that provides the cameras. I don't like that. I think if you don't like how this is going, I want you to be able to get out of it. So I have added a 30-day termination provision for us to get out of this if we want to. So I want you to be aware of that.
So are all these violations mailed to the
Yeah, so what, the way it works is that they send, the videos, and they're very clear, I've seen, samples of them. They capture the violation. The video is then sent to the police department to confirm that it is actually a violation. So what they're saying as an example is that the bus may be still coming to a stop, but the driver's activating the lights. Well, they have to be stopped for it to be actually a violation before they turn it on. And a car may go by as that's occurring. We can say, no, that's not a violation. Or we could say that the bus stopped, but the car was moving and they turned their lights on as the car was already in motion. We can use our discretion, no, that's not a violation, and get rid of it. When we say, yep, that's a violation, the bus patrol is the name of the company, they send notice to the owner of the vehicle, and the owner then gets the fine, it's a civil penalty. And if they plead not guilty to it now, it no longer names us as a lawsuit, we're not even involved in it. It goes before a master with PennDOT, and it's all done video. And we're not even involved in hearing.
So it's not in the district justice.
Well, if they would appeal that, then it goes to the DJ.
Oh, wow.
So, and then we would have to be involved, that's the only time. I don't,
2 appeals.
what's that?
That's the 2 appeals.
Basically.
And how much are these fines?
The total fine is $300. The borough gets $25 of that each fine. I mean, I would anticipate too that once this goes through now with Wilson, we'll see Wyomissing eventually put these cameras in as well. So I think that this will be something that we do with Wilson, and then 2 years or so, Wyomissing will be asking for the same thing.
So you're happy with this? You're happy with this, with the changes? I'll make the motion to accept it with the pertinent changes to the signership.
Second.
Motion and second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it with the corrections. So passes.
And the last thing I have on here is I want to inform the committee that our Officer Niedermeyer, he was the one that just graduated from the academy, not the one that is currently in, but he kind of had a change of heart and decided that this wasn't the job he thought it was going to be, and he has resigned. As things stand now, I think we're okay. If my number was 22, I'm at 24 right now, but that was to replace Detective Anders, and we replaced Sergeant Karstein early because of how testing went. We only had 2 people left, so we replaced them early. So we're okay. I have enough positions for everything unless somebody else would decide to leave one reason or another. If Sergeant Karstein does get a job somewhere, then I would not need to test. I would need to test. As it stands now, with planning on Sergeant Karstein being done in 2026, what I would be looking to do is starting the hiring process again in January of 25, in thought that the individual may need the academy. That would get them done at the end of 25, December. They come out and they're in our training program until the end of March, beginning of April of 26. And then by that time in July, Sergeant Karstein would be done. So we would be at our 22.
So he's in the drop, right, Chris?
Yes.
So you don't want a civil service?
Not right now, unless Sergeant Karstein would leave early or something else happens to somebody else, but no, as it stands now, we're good.
Good. Civil services got a lot on their
I
plate
know,
right now.
I know.
How long does it take to create this?
Couple of months.
So that's why I'm saying, at beginning of January of 25, if everything stays, we would have it done by the time an academy would start, which would be July of 25.
I'm good with that.
Okay.
If you're good with that, I'm good with that.
Anything else, for Chief Phillips? Thank you very much, Chief, appreciate it. Okay, West Side Emergency Management, Tom.
I wanna go first next time.
I already done
All right.
Yeah.
Just a couple of informational updates here. The open house for the EOC was attended by 2 from Wyomissing and 1 from Spring Township, which was fine, and people that were there, I think, got information that they wanted, and if they need anything else, we're always available to do that. Couple other things about just some training things that are coming up, actually. The county is gonna sponsor, thanks to all the railroad derailments here lately. They're sponsoring and are taking care of an exercise that will be presented at the Spring Township at the fire station in the EOC there. That's to involve a tabletop session, and that's scheduled for June. That is by invitation only, it was told. At this point, I don't know how many people will attend, but it's a good idea, and hopefully we have a good turnout and a good session there for that.
Tom, will the railroad participate in that session?
That was on the sheet, it said Norfolk Southern would be there, as well as other agencies that are involved with responding. Didn't give a total list, I don't know who else got invitations. I know the local fire guys did, and I guess the police did too, I guess. For that one, yeah. So that, and I don't know about, medical, I don't know about you guys for EMS, did you get one, Tony?
We got invited, but,
Okay.
yeah, we're going.
So it looks like it encompasses, most of the first responders at least for that, as well as, other agencies that you talked about there. So that's a good thing. We also have a couple other sessions that we're attending. The township has an emergency management thing coming up in April, and there is also going to the South Central Task Force, which is the next one over from us going west, has some information there that I think we might be interested in taking a look at too, so we'll be going to that. And I will point out that I made a brief, we held a brief meeting here with Chief Holmes the other day to discuss some things about future meetings and information sharing that's could be coming down the pike. So he did beg off a little bit to say once the dust settled here that we could spend a little more serious time with some of that.
Absolutely.
Okay, so that everyone is aware of that. If anyone has any other questions, we'll let you eat, Steve.
I'm not hungry.
Oh, my.
Okay, any other questions, comments? Anybody have anything? Hearing none, entertain a motion to adjourn.
Executive.
Do we have?
I have nothing. Do
No
you?
need, wonderful.
Chief?
Okay, no, we do.
What?
We do have executive session.
Okay, this time we'll adjourn into executive session for personnel matters. Chief,
Personnel.
personnel matters?
Get the sandwich and so
You beat me to it.
Is there salad?